Greeting viewers, Columbia Global Centers, Nairobi warmly welcomes you, our audience, to the continuation of our Emotional Intelligence series. In the first session, we learned that emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, direct, and positively express emotions. In the second session, we covered self-awareness, where we learned that self-awareness is the ability to understand yourself and to be in tune with your feelings, thoughts, and actions. In the third session, we covered self-regulation, which is the extent to which people influence, modify, or control their own behavior, including thoughts and feelings. Today, we continue to delve deeper in tackling all these factors that influence our emotions and state of mind. And our focus will be on stress management. As always, your host is Columbia Global Centers Nairobi in partnership with Albert Migowa. Albert is a trained counseling psychologist and an emotional intelligence coach. He will be moderating our session today. Columbia Global Centers Nairobi is part of 9 regional hubs positioned around the world by Columbia University. The centers serve as platforms for dialogue and the exchange of knowledge in research, education, as well as public programming. Our speaker today is Dr. Susan Gitau. Dr. Gitau is a counseling psychologist, certified mediator, training of trainers expert, trauma counseling specialist, peace and security and gender advisor, researcher, and motivational speaker. She also lectures on counseling psychology, clinical practice, multicultural, and trauma counseling. Dr. Gitau is the director of International Professional Counselors Center, Kenya, the Kiambu County Chairperson and Senior Supervisor in the Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association. She is also a certified professional mediator of the Kenya and East African Standby Force. She is also the founder and trustee of the Dr. Susan Gitau Counseling Foundation. Dr. Gitau is simply amazing and a gift to our society, and it's a pleasure to have her with us here today. We are expecting her to join shortly, actually. Before we get started, kindly note, today's program is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. As we proceed, please post your questions or comments pertaining to emotional intelligence under the Q&A section. Remember to follow us on social media so that you can stay updated with all our upcoming programs. We will be posting our handles in the chat area. I would now like to hand over to Albert to proceed from here. Welcome, Albert.
Okay, thank you very much, Pauline. Hello, everybody, from whichever part of the world you're joining in from. Once again, I'm very delighted to be here today and that you're also able to tune in. Today's discussion is very, very timely. It's a conversation that needs to be had, going by the fact that stress is one thing that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, and more so now with the various pressures and strains that we're going through as individuals, be it socially, economically, and politically. The whole idea is for us to know how best to identify some of our triggers, what would cause them, and above all, how to handle or find positive ways of coping with them, and at the end of the day, be resilient. So as we wait in for Dr. Gitau, I'd just like to begin by just defining what stress is all about. So stress is basically how our body, how we adjust to various life situations. And remember that life that we live in has got various forms of stressful I see Daktari is joining in now. Welcome, Daktari. I'll just holding fort. Welcome, Daktari. Over to you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Thank you. I'm somewhere in a school.
Yes. You can, Daktari.
I was just giving a talk to the parents. Yeah, I'm glad to make it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So I just began the conversation by just telling our viewers what stress is all about, what we look at in terms of the causes and ways of coping with the various stresses that we're going to go through, that we go through in life. And at the end of the day, the whole idea is to be resilient, because remember, stress is something that we'll receive, that we'll go through every single day. We can't avoid it. But the whole idea is to have ways of coping with the stresses that we undergo. So we've gone that far. So now maybe you can pick it from there, Daktari. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Albert. I want to imagine you have already tackled the sources, and there are many, from one individual to another.
I haven't. I was just introducing it. Then you just joined in.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
So how many minutes do I have?
About 45 minutes.
Yes, 45.
45. So it's 4:12. Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Dr. Susan Gitau. I am a counseling psychologist and chair of counseling psychology department at African Nazarene University. I'm also a Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association accredited senior counselor supervisor and the chair of Kiambu County KCPA. Actually, this Saturday, we are going to have a one-day conference to look at the mental health status of our political aspirant leaders, just to climax the end of the month of May, which is the mental health month, with a very big emphasis on burnout management, as the World Health Organization has also recognized. The rest of the things you can read there, but maybe it's important for you to know that I'm in a very serious business of trying to introduce neuroplasticity in a very simple way of mindful self-compassion and using mindfulness to help us manage stress. I run a foundation, Susan Gitau Counseling Foundation, and I do this to help the less vulnerable members of the society, and the most vulnerable, that is the world, who cannot afford counseling services, which are very expensive. And I also match that with psychosocial support, any other thing that can make a vulnerable child, woman or man, or young man, mostly the youth, do better in terms of their general wellness. I like to do it through the foundation, and the Lord has been very faithful, such that a big number, over 50 youths from Kiambu slum, that is the biggest slum in Kiambu County, are benefiting from a course on electrical installation through partners like you who is watching me. You might join me. And maybe the last bit I would like to say is that one day I may need to come back with Albert and courteous invitation by Pauline and Columbia at Large University to basically let people know there is a quick way and a practice one can apply. You can learn about it, and then you can apply it in your everyday life to ensure that nothing takes you out of this world that is related to stress, because stress is here to stay. We do have positive stress, we do have negative stress. The positive stress is like, now I knew I had to do this webinar, and I remember telling Pauline I'll be in a school parental guidance to parents. The fact that I was thinking I should be here by 4 and set up my laptop, that is positive, because at the end of the day, I'll feel I have achieved despite a very loaded day. And some of us, when we are taking exams, we are completing projects. But when you talk about negative stress, it is a stress that I'm going to give emphasis on, especially today, And I'm happy because Albert has mentioned a little bit here and there. Your career can be a very big source of stress. And I want to tell you this because, like, for women, allow me to just love women a little bit. We carry so many burdens. We have our children, we have our husbands, we have also our cycles. And like men, we have to deal with other things in our lives, like the menstrual cycle every month. It's not easy for everybody. Sometimes people have what we call hormonal imbalances, and nobody wants to understand why you're moody. But the way you are biologically created has actually had an impact on the way you live. So career can be one. The other one can be our own personal issues. We do struggle with different issues personally. They could be relationship oriented, could be my own self as a personality. It could be maybe the issues that I'm struggling with from a personal point of view, maybe sicknesses and illness, but they are personal, they are mine, my own personal issues. We can also talk about maybe the environment, whether you're in a school or in a very stressful environment. Like, there are people who live in a noisy environment. There are people who live in a very dangerous environment. We have people that the environment, just think of the environment in your own way. It can be a source of stress. Sometimes it could be finances, the economic status. That is the macro environment. Like today we are talking about constrained economic status. Why are we saying that? Because at the end of the day, you can close the door for me. I'm in a school environment. I hope you guys are gonna forgive me for any interruptions. You may find that if we are talking about your own personal stresses like illness, I hope they're not going to open the door again. Or you can see out there's a webinar ongoing. We can talk about very many sources of our stresses. I want you to just think, because I'm also thinking about you. Think about what causes you more stress. And I'm talking about the post-COVID-19 pandemic. We are not yet there, but we have wishful thinking that we are now going back to the basics. Whether COVID is there in whatever shape and size, we are saying we are going back to the basics. Actually, that is the mental health theme for 2022, going back to the basics. And for sure, we still know people are contracted COVID, people are still dying of COVID, though maybe not in large numbers, but we are telling ourselves we have become resilient. But there are some of us who are still battling the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. And so we cannot ignore that that was a macro environmental issue, environmental and health issues, and some of us are not in very good space. So when we think about the workplace, and majority of us maybe who are watching us here, we have gotten a lot of stress from our workplace. How would you know that people have stress? And even if you are at home and you have stress, if you are in a school environment and you have stress, there are certain things that you can be able to observe. Like in a workplace, we always have the chronic absenteeism, poor job performance, people who are irritable, very poor relationships, regular conflicts. This can also happen at home and in school. Increased use of alcohol and other substances of abuse, threats to quit maybe your family, your marriage, and even work, malpractice, because at the end of the day, maybe you're not able to perform well. And so even in a school environment, if a student has not revised very well, read very well, they might find themselves cheating. Violence is also a very good indicator that people could be stressed. Accidents, sometimes even minor accidents, even for you, even if it's not at the workplace, that you keep cutting yourself when you're doing maybe your vegetables in the kitchen, or you keep tripping and falling. Sometimes it's not just that it's normal. You could actually be stressed and you could not be living in the present moment. Recurrent conflicts and toxic relationships, and many other things that you can talk about. The good thing is that the World Health Organization has recognized that burnout, especially exhaustion, work-related exhaustion, has been listed in ICD-11, International Classification of Diseases. And I believe we psychologists are going to have it listed in the DSM-5. I mean, it might be DSM-6 if they're not going to put it in the DSM-5, the diagnostic statistical manual that we use as a psychologist and other mental health practitioners. the worst that can happen, whether it is work related, life related, personal, marriage, family, wherever, studies, if you cannot manage your stress very well, then be ready to go into depression. And depression from my where I sit is like, today I've gotten something that stresses me a lot. It could be death of a loved one. It could be loss of a job, loss of an opportunity, failure in my academic work for those who are in school, whatever the source may be. And I'm trying to fight so hard to get out of this, and I'm not able to. So for me, I see depression, it's like you're getting into a big hole. You're trying to get out, but you can't. So finally, when you sink down there and you get depressive or you get depression, at the end of the day, we may start talking about other things. And for me, I always say, if you can manage your stress every day in your own small way, you can prevent yourself from getting here. Every time I talk about depression, I like to remember my late dad, who died when I just graduated from University of Nairobi, one of the most prestigious university in my country, Kenya. And this man that I love so much in the name of my father had taken a little bit too much at the workplace everywhere. And at the end of the day, he could not cope. He could not probably even leave work because he had a large family, the typical African family. And so he kept sinking in. You're not sleeping well, you're not eating well. And finally, he had to sink into severe depression. And that made things very worse, because the minute you start using psychiatric medication to treat any form of mental disorder, if, for example, the adherents, counselors, nurses, or support systems are not working along with you, you never know what can happen. And finally, overuse of drugs for many years. Like my dad used those drugs for over 23 years. And finally, you get other related complications like diabetes, high blood pressure. And so my dad finally died of high blood pressure, and it was actually stroke, to be precise. So stress is something that people think is far off there, but I want you to think of assessing your own stress, beginning with your own body. Like if I asked you right now to close your eyes and take a deep breath, hold your breath and out. And you try to relax. For those who say, I'm not able to tell whether in my body I have stress, simple ways that you can do every day. You might pick their parts of your body that have tension. They are not relaxed, very simple ways. But you may find that in a larger scale, your physical body can tell you exactly what is going on. Some people may have body aches, joint pains. Some people may have maybe severe headaches. Some people may have stomach problems. Some people may have muscle tension. Whatever it is in your body that doesn't make you feel comfortable to run your daily activities, just find out, could it be linked to stress? When you talk about emotional well-being, assessment of your emotions, the happy emotions, we embrace them very well. We don't have a problem with happy emotions, or the emotions that energize you positively. Yeah, like if you're joyful, you're happy, you're excited, you're jubilant. Those ones we don't worry a lot. We only worry if you start smiling in the morning and you're smiling and laughing the whole day, then we may actually think that you have mood imbalance. But the negative ones that we worry a lot about is anxiety, that every day you can't relax, you're restless, you have very high anxious situations or experiences in your life, you're full of tension, you can't remain still, you are on alert, high alert mode. It's like you're waiting for something to happen and there you go. Some, it is sadness, overwhelming sadness. You feel so sad like you've lost someone, you've lost something. It's like you have a very big void in yourself. And this goes for over 2 weeks. All these symptoms, if they go for over 2 weeks, it's always good to visit a mental health expert. When you talk about your cognitive assessment, you may find that your memory is disrupted. Maybe you now have poor memory, you're so forgetful, or your thoughts have become so negative, you're very irrational the way you think. You might find at night you're having nightmares. Maybe some people sleep completely when there is no stress, but when they're stressed, they have nightmares. They have dreams that are not in a form that makes you happy. When you wake up in the morning, you're so tired simply because you're having nightmares. Sometimes it could be you're not sleeping well, and it's because your brain is not relaxed. Some people can stay the whole night, another night, they haven't slept. And there are others on the other flip side, they oversleep, that you're not getting enough sleep, or you wanted to sleep. And so your faculties, and especially your mental faculties, we worry a lot, especially when you're telling us you're having these thoughts of taking your own life, you're having thoughts of nothing is gonna work out, you're having thoughts of harming other people. It's all about your mind, brain at work. That is our mind. When you talk about your social life, it's like either you withdraw completely, or you find yourself hooking up with people that you have never dreamt of hooking up with. You're not having company that you can never be happy about, or you couldn't have been happy about or proud of before. So your social life, and mostly we are like, this person is withdrawn completely from the rest of the people. We don't know what's happening to you. We don't know what is bothering you, because you're no longer interested in mixing with people. Spiritually, for the ones that prescribe to any religious, maybe formation or denomination, it means you're no longer interested in the activities in that line. But if I go spiritual for all of us, is where you now miss to have that sense of meaning in your life. You lack a sense of purpose. You feel your life is meaningless. Nothing makes you feel worth to live. Nothing makes you feel that you'd want to face tomorrow. It's like you start seeing a very dark future, hopeless, helpless kind of feeling. And we normally say you have started seeing like you shouldn't be around here. You can actually see the connection between the cognitive negative thoughts of taking your own life and the link spiritually, that you have no meaning, because majority of people have gone through so much stress in this life. You could have thought they could have given up. You could have thought that for sure, I think if I were that person, I would also have taken my own life. But they found a reason to move on. They found a reason to go on. In our work in psychology, there is one, Viktor Frankl, one of the philosophers and also psychologists that we follow on the area of existentialism. He survived the Nazism, you know? If you remember the time of Hitler, and everybody in the family was killed, he lost everything, he was locked up in cells, but he kept seeing there's going to be a better tomorrow. So you can imagine if you have reached a point, you don't see anything meaningful in your life. And that can happen when the stress levels are very high. In terms of behavior, it's the way you act, the way you behave. Very, very important. And this is where you can also combine the rest. Like somebody feels that I need to keep fighting, I need to keep quarreling, and somebody is easily picks a fight, whether it's verbal, emotional, and physical. You may find maybe you're also over drinking. If it's a substance that you think is gonna cool your mind, is gonna make you feel you're on top of things, but you're running away from your own stresses. Some people can even overeat, undereat. Some people can overdo gym. Yeah, just think about a behavior that is weird, or because you're forgetful. That's why I want for you to see. Because you're forgetful, you might find yourself somewhere, you're so lost, and you start walking wherever you may walk. Extreme cases, That is where we get them. So it's important to know, how do I behave? How is my spiritual well-being, social well-being, emotional well-being, physical well-being, if I'm assessing how my stress is and how it has affected me. In our own lives, I've been talking the whole day, so allow me to sip something. In our own lives, we've been created naturally or biologically. The first organ that started working in our own lives definitely was the brain. And that is why when a child is born, that part of them is very big. The rest of the body grows with time. But because here is where the brain is, that gives information of many things that should start running. If you feed well, this should grow. If you're doing this, you know, the brain is very important. And what happens with stress, it affects this part of your body, which is very critical. It's just like thinking of the central processing unit of a computer when it is haywire, when it is upside down. So whenever we are faced by a threat system, this three-parted brain comes into action. The first we share with animals, I call the lizard brain, or the pilot brain, the autopilot for that matter. It is the one that if you try to bring your finger, it's only because I have my specs near my eyes, I'm gonna close my eyes. It will be automatic. And even when we are highly threatened, that is our survival part of the brain. And people who are highly stressed and they are not aware, they are not in the present moment, are likely to actually fight, take a flight, or freeze. And when I talk about freezing, is where trauma comes in. It may not be written there, but I talk about the 3 Fs. That I take a flight, I can fight, you know, you try to combat the stress. I can also freeze. Like there's nothing I can do about this stress. And that freezing is where we say you're likely to be traumatized. So it's not just stress, but this can be post-traumatic stress disorder situation. Like you are at risk of developing PTSD if you get into a situation where you are threatened and all you're responding is in a very frozen way. And in freezing, there are times you can even submit. In extreme situations, instead of just you numbing, being in shock, there are situations where people submit. Like, this is too much for me to bear. So you submit either by fainting, and some people faint for a couple of hours. And it's like at that time, everything is gone. I want to give an example of yesterday, but one. I was just driving out to the mall with my brother, and somebody, a driver who was drunk, did not want to go inside the truck because it was at very high speed. And so he decided, because I have seen another car who is small coming from the mall, it's an old car, and thank God that day that's the car that my brother had and had driven me with it to the mall. And this guy came head on. At first, I thought this is a small movie. The way this guy is coming, maybe he knows me or he knows, I don't know. You know, the way your mind now changes is you're not thinking rationally, because this is, the brain has a way of protecting itself, the autopilot brain. Because at first, could I even start thinking, this is a driver who knows me and is threatening to hit me head on? You know, it's just a way of the brain escaping. I'm talking about yesterday, but one. And if I could post those pictures of the car, it was badly hit at the front. And even right now, I think my arms here, because even if I was belted, the way I held onto the seat, because I was behind back left, the way I held onto the seat, I think I'm still not seeing my muscles, because this is dead. But you can imagine how my brain had cheated me, that this guy maybe knows me. This is a big joke. How can he be coming like the way he's coming? Until later on, when the accident happens, is when you're thinking, oh my, this was near death. But that is how the autopilot brain can work. It can even make you think things are not the way you're seeing them. And I believe it's a natural way, but you need to get out of that And that is why in counseling work, we believe in psychological, maybe debriefing or narrative, where you can share how did it happen in a very logical way, so that you don't get to a level of staying in denial forever. When you talk about the mammal brain, I know I have very few minutes. When you talk about the mammal brain, this mammalian brain is highly activated in women, the limbic system, the seat of emotions, memories, habits, and attachments. And for sure, if you look at the female gender, us human beings, we are very good at that. We are very good at expressing our emotions, very good at keeping memories, our anniversaries. The same way, if you do something wrong to me, I might carry it for a longer time than a man and a male counterpart would do. When we form habits like cooking for our children, taking care of our husbands, going to church, we form habits as women are very hard to break. And when you talk about attachments, you can see even in relationships that women attach, that they have more of either insecure attachment towards men than the other way around. And so you may find that when a relationship breaks up, a woman is more wounded, more wounded. If you find a man more wounded and really complaining, in most cases, maybe he had really invested more than emotions, money. And if you're here and you're a young person, let your relationship grow naturally. Otherwise, even if you're also a lady, we always say, and this has never changed, go to South America, go to America, go to UK, come to Africa, anywhere in the world. The female gender, because I've also seen a lot of stress among the young people if you're in the forum, whereby you find the female students or the female gender, you find in most cases when you give your all without thinking that you might be hurt tomorrow and you're actually hurt, it breaks you in a very big way. And so the best thing is to try and balance. For men, again, if you can activate your mammalian brain, maybe with the practices that I'm carrying around, like the mindfulness and mindful self-compassion, you may find yourself not treating another person badly, and you might find yourself having less guilt, even in your working life. If you look at the last one, the human brain, the neocortex brain, the thinking brain, this under stress, very high stress levels, you might find yourself not thinking straight. Yet that is where you need to operate from. That everything I'm doing, I need to be reasonable, need to be rational, the language I'm using. And you might find when people are very angry, and in my world, I would say they are very stressed, because a stressed person is highly irritable and very violent. You may find even the language changes, the way they are talking. They are not kind, they are not warm. And so I always say, if you find now the link of the effects of our stress on our own cognitive faculties, we are not able. Maybe I may not touch a lot about burnout, but I may not ignore this, because this has scared the whole world. And the World Health Organization is still emphasizing. And the workplaces that have taken this seriously, they have realized if we work routinely, which we do, we report to work for 40 hours. Is it 40 hours in a week? Yeah, it's like you're doing 8 hours in a day and you have 5 working days. For students, if you're very active in your studies, maybe 20 hours is allowed in some countries. That routine engagement is to cause you burnout. Lack of a break, lack of skills to do what you ought to do. You can imagine right now, if the environment where I was in, and I'm not skilled in what I do, I'm not competent in what I do, that would heighten my anxiety and my stress. And there are some people who are given tasks that are beyond their skills competence. And you have to try over and over again. I'm like the way parents, like in a school where I'm in, it's a high performing school. I'll not tell you the name, but you find you're taking your child to that high performing school, but their competence level do not match that. You're only going to stress them there. When you get bored again, and we can be bored because of routine, we can be bored because of many things in the workplace. Stagnation, you have stagnated in the same job group, you have stagnated in the same class. Like right now, I think in Africa, mostly in Africa, the higher institutions of learning, many students crying how they have overstayed doing their research project. They are likely to burn out. Somebody who is burnt out, they are exhausted. They have lost interest in what they are doing. And in most cases, maybe it's because they had very high expectations. If you look at that slide, you will see the burnout curve and how to reverse it. If I have high expectations, set realistic ones. If I believe hard work is the one that is going to give me a lot of money and then I have low reward over it, I need to accept that hard work is not always the way that I'll be rewarded, and many other things. And the worst that can happen in burnout is you collapsing. Either you collapse to fainting because you have overworked, you collapse into depression, or you collapse even to death. I don't know whether you've ever seen people who are found dead in their offices, on their desks, even on their laptops. Or somebody was driving and along the way, their body gave way. And so they crashed to death. Situations where somebody is working and they are not aware, they're not having regular medical checkup. The next thing they find out, their high blood pressure is very high. Maybe they have a problem in their physical body. And I want to give an example that during COVID-19 pandemic, I overworked. Personally, I'm giving you my own example. Because everything changed. We had to go online for almost 2 years in my department. That means you have to change everything, exams online, because even when we used to have distance learning, the students used to come and sit for exams on campus, and that would be it. But now you have to learn the new system. The same time, someone like me who is in the public domain, every media house wants you to comment. We're having lots of stress at home. We are having lots of stress in the workplace. Oh, you're all over. And because this is something I'm passionate about, I was never saying no. Until one day I was checking in into a medical facility just so that I can be in good check. I was traveling to Tanzania for a HR summit that I attend every year. And so I said, as I go to my neighboring country, can I know how my health status is? So I was just walking in thinking I'm very okay, only to register very high blood pressure. I had never had such in my life, 177 over 106. I told them, their machines, your machines are not good. Denial, because me, I should be taking very good care of my life. And they did it again. I said, I'm gonna stay here for 4 hours and then we can do another retest. I still tested that. It scared me. I had to take those drugs for 2 weeks. And from there, I saw, I want to have a very good self-care plan. There are some tasks I take, there are some tasks I don't take. And I said, I think my life should end where? For all the years I have worked so hard, I need to enjoy my gains. And I can tell you I'm doing better. And I have no regrets. I also realized you can be called here and there and there. It's about money and all that. And this money will never be enough. So I also realized I can be very good at finding out how I'm doing mentally, because I was performing very well. You're going for interviews, you're doing very well and all that. But my body was giving way. And so for everybody who is active, I want to tell you that check. And if there's a practice that has really helped me, is what I'm actually taking seriously to Africa, or bring into Africa. Mindfulness practice and mindful self-compassion. There are some countries that learned this long time ago, but it's never too late. I'm doing it and I'm trying my level best. So when you talk about the impact of stress on the family, you will find low morale, low interest, hatred with actual harm. You can even have self-hatred. You can have hatred for people that you love. There is rebellion, violence of cycle with high mistrust. This is on the family level, and marriage can even go here. So all these things can really be costly at the end of the day. You can see the last one I'm saying there is poverty. And in Africa, we fear a lot about poverty. Already we have a lot of economic challenges as Africans. And so you can imagine now, if you are having problems at this level, what that means. And so I like to tell people one of the things that we may need to ask ourselves, even as we try to manage stress. I know you may have questions. So I want to take, how many minutes, Albert? Don't be afraid to stop me, because people might have questions which are better.
You have about like
Remember,
6 minutes.
Somebody's environment. 6 minutes.
Yeah.
6.
Yes.
6, eh?
Finish your presentation though, it's fine.
But finish. Yeah, but can finish, yeah.
All right, yes, yeah. So think about managing difficult emotions and difficult people. I may have presented this for couples, but think about if this is not a spouse, is a friend, is a colleague at workplace, or managing difficult emotions in relationships. It's always good to think about affectionate breathing. And when I talk about affectionate breathing, is where you find maybe you got irritable, you are supposed to treat somebody with kindness, yourself, if you are a lecturer, your students, but you've been very unkind. It's always good to go back to yourself and try to listen to your heartbeat. Listen to the way you are breathing, the blood flow. You can always tell. And our hearts are the most important organs that can tell us how our stress levels are. But we rarely go here. If you ever find someone doing like this, it's when they are feeling pity for someone else. It's when they are treating other people with compassion. But rarely do we turn that to ourselves. We turn it here so that we can be able to take care of ourselves, take care of people that we love before extending it to other people. Love and kindness is great. That always try, even when things are very bad, bring some kindness to yourself, to other people. Just know you're very human. And every human being desires to be loved, desires to be treated with compassion. So when you turn that, it helps a lot. When you think about compassionate listening, first listen to yourself. You can even sit somewhere alone and you're listening to your body to begin with. You can decide you want to track your thoughts at this moment. If you're dealing with a colleague, a family member, a spouse, someone close to you that is stressed, you can just decide, I may not have solutions for them, but I just want to speak. Maybe very few words after they have spoken their all. And so you can just decide you want to be an active listener. I wish I could model this for you. I always do it in open platforms. And at the end of the day, once they have stopped talking about their issues, you can ask them one question. What do you think you need now? How do you think you can get what you need now? You'll be so shocked. People have answers. People have solutions. The other one is living with a vow. Like, for example, I told you I made a vow. It doesn't matter how much money, I didn't even want to calculate how much money I have lost for taking care of myself, including taking a leave without payment, just to rejuvenate and bounce back, because I still feel the world needs me, needs my services. I need myself, my family needs me. And so there are other things that are more valuable. And if I don't make a vow and live with that vow, I may never find myself managing it. Then acceptance. There are certain situations that are going to happen in our lives. We have nothing else but to accept. And I want to tell you there's beauty in accepting. The minute you accept this is happening to me, I am stressed, I am depressed, I am traumatized. It's sort of the next thing your mind wants to do is to think about a way out. But majority of us live in denial for so long and becomes very difficult to think about the way forward. So forgiveness is another thing. I like to call it Like you allow the pain. If somebody caused you some pain and caused you stress, allow that pain to melt within you. Just like this picture that is here. If you remain hard because you're proud, because dying the inside. But when you melt, like the last picture there, you can see the last heart there. If you allow yourself to melt out things that are difficult, and that is why mindfulness for me is very powerful. It works under neuroplasticity concept that you sit there. It's very difficult. It's very painful. You will be so shocked as you allow it to sink. The feeling is different. But we don't want to go through that pain to experience gain. Then letting go is the hardest, but it is doable according to me and in my practice and in what I've seen in people. And maybe for the sake of time and questions, I would like to say there are many other ways that people apply to deal with their stresses. You can take leave. You have seen I have risked taking a leave without payment for 6 months just to reorganize myself and know my space and know what do I need to focus on and what don't I need to focus on. You can take vacations, take your off days very seriously. If you have a practice that makes you very happy, like for me, mindful self-compassion, even if I'm a trained teacher from the Center of Mindful Self-Compassion USA, I still practice it for my own self-care. It's always good to have maybe a hobby, an interest that makes you happy when you engage. Kindly do that. Make sure you have very good social networks, like the friends that you have or the relationships that you have in your own inner circle. They are relationships that engage you in a positive way. They boost your morale. Try that. If it's a skill that you feel you lack, you can use maybe time to learn a new skill. Very, very important to do that. And if you also find that empowering yourself spiritually can help you, go ahead and do it. If you also go into the community, I want to tell you there's a lot of value when you go out into the community and say, I want to give back to the community. I have found a lot of fulfillment when I lift another soul that is so desperate. So find if you can do any community projects, meaningful community projects. And if you're here in a company and your company doesn't have corporate social responsibility, start one. If it's a family, you can decide we want to take care of maybe a needy child, we lift them up. I want to tell you, you will never be deficient. And that is where you find the very many people we remember now, and maybe the legends, people who have passed on before us, you realize they never ever lived for themselves. They lived for other people. And so even if you are young, because you'd say, maybe I don't have enough, that's something you can try. And maybe as we finish, I want you to sit upright so that you can ask me questions later. Sit upright wherever you are. Sit upright, sit upright, sit upright, sit upright, sit upright. And I want us to do something very, very simple. If you are seated on a 90 degrees angle, I play that you breathe in using your nostril, like using these nostrils. I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, and I'll tell you hold 1, 2, 3, and then I'll tell you out 1, 2, 3. It's just put you in a rhythm, but it should come out naturally. So let's go. Breathe in 1, 2, and 3. Hold your voice 1, 2, and 3. Breathe out using your mouth 1, 2, 3. If you want to make it natural, you can just take it in without counting. If you can do that regularly, make it a practice every morning, wherever you feel like you have tension going forward. What you'll be doing, you'll be feeding your brain with enough oxygen so that your brain is always alert. And what you'll also be doing, your blood circulation will not be deficient of oxygen. And our brain, by the way, feeds a lot on that oxygen, because whatever you eat, whatever you're consuming, if it doesn't reach the brain, then you can imagine about any other things about brain damage. Thank you so much, Albert. Back to you because of questions. Asante sana.
Oh, thank you so very much, Daktari. That was a very enlightening discussion and conversation around stress management. And I think for me, one of the golden nuggets I pick from the conversation is that I think as a people, there's need to be able to identify our triggers. Number one, we need to figure out how best to cope with them. But also remember, stress happens on a day-to-day basis. We have got positive stress and bad stress, okay? Remember, there's need for us to come up with positive coping mechanisms, okay? And remember, at the end of the day, we need to be resilient. So I think that's the flow, knowing what stress is, knowing that stress happens every day. We've got good stress, bad stress. Once you know your cause of stress, then you also have the effects of stress. Then we've talked about how to cope with stress positively. And then now at the end of the day, we need to be resilient. And under that, remember, resilience comes in many ways. We need to address our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being, our cognitive well-being, and our spiritual well-being. Because remember, at the end of the day, you need to be holistic as a person. Without much ado, I'd like to open the floor to any questions and comments at this juncture. Kindly, let's post your question or comment.
Yes, I have seen a question, Albert, from Wanyeke Nodia. Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you for the informative seminar. Do you have a book on the subject with African Kenyan context? I think the only book I have is on trauma, what I did on my PhD. But currently we are translating the Mindful Self-Compassion manual into Swahili. And on 19th of June, if any one of you can be able to join us on a silent retreat, a virtual one. We will be having members from different continents, 19th of June, 2022. And the Kenyan or the African friends are just getting in with 15 USD. It's gonna be from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Maybe I'll share this with Albert and Pauline. You can see how does silent retreat work in a mindful self-compassion context. I'm also trying to get poems from Africa because a lot of mindfulness and mindful self-compassion teachings, trainings, you can see they have a lot of other cultures, but we are trying to groom our African way. And so Wanja, the question you've asked is very, very relevant. Thank you. I'll share the information so that we can also come and see how do we contextualize information in Africa. Thank you. My book, you can get it on Amazon, Trauma Recovery for Internally Displaced Persons by Dr. Susan Gitao, or if you just go Susan Gitao, you might get that. And any other materials, by the way, I have a lot of material to share with people. Maybe right now when I'm on leave, I'm looking for donors. Maybe Albert is going to be one of them, and maybe Colombia, so that we can produce easy to read and use materials for our own people. Thank you, Anja. Asante sana.
As they wait for questions to come in, Daktari, kindly explain in summation, what is the cycle of depression? What is the cycle of depression, or what is the cycle of stress? And then number two, what are some of the key long-term effects of stress, in particular when it comes down to the brain function?
So I think about the brain, Albert, I did some work, though not so intense, but over time, if you do not manage your stress very well, I have told you, you might find yourself sinking into depression. And by the time somebody gets into severe depression, where they say this is beyond clinical intervention, you might be on drugs for the rest of your life. And when you're on psychiatric drugs for the rest of your life, we are saying your neuro makeup. When you think about neurobiology, It's like now your neurotransmitters will start firing differently. From the way you are firing, they were firing when you had no stress or minimal stress. Now it will be different. And I'm sure we have seen people maybe within our quarters. I think I watched my old dad, from a dad that was very loving, a dad that was there for all of us, to a dad that now had to live on other people. Whether it is his thinking, it is 8 a.m., it is 10 p.m., you know, he had now to depend on other people totally and depend on these drugs to survive. Very, very sad. And so for me, I like to say I may not be a neurobiologist or a neurosurgeon, but I'm sure the brain gets damaged, very damaged to an extent you cannot function the way you used to function before. When I talk about the cycle of depression, the cycle of stress, the cycle of burnout, the cycle of PTSD, it's just like the way we talk about the cycle of maybe domestic violence, sexual and gender-based violence, is where you keep finding yourself in the same place. And that is why, for me, I like to go very realistic and very personal. One, are you able to identify when you are stressed? Are you able to identify the aspects, the components that I touched on? Which one gets affected most? Like for me, I have told you it's my body. And right now I have mastered. Right now I have known I only need every morning to wake up and I feel my blood pressure. I examine my blood pressure. I need to examine my body, which parts of my body. Maybe I didn't sleep well. I slept on one hand, you know, like I've told you about the accident I had. Are you able to pick all those aspects where you're not doing very well? Are you able to have a rating scale, your own rating scale, like on a 0 to 10, where am I operating? Maybe you can say, if I operate below 5, I'm not doing very well. If I operate at 6, 7, I'm doing very well. The other thing we can ask, how do you get affected? What are the effects? How do you get affected? Like for me, I feel energy is gone completely. So most likely, what is likely to affect me so much is burnout. And where does burnout come from in my own situation? Is my work engagement. So I need to actually master the way I work, my workload, the timings, my sleeping hours. That is what I like to tell people. Can you have your own personal self-care so that you don't keep going round and round in the cycle of stress, because you will find you messing up again. Although I'm saying in a very realistic world, you may find yourself going there. But if you are so reflective and aware and mindful, because mindfulness is about living in the present moment, you will definitely know it's coming. And you will not allow yourself to go to C if you had gone all the way to C or D. Thank you so much, Albert.
Thank you. There's a question here, Dr. How can university students finishing up their studies cope with the uncertainty and stress factors of postgraduate life? How can university students finishing up their studies cope with the uncertainty and stress factors of postgraduate life?
Yeah, and by the way, I think Pauline and Albert, we really need to carry out a study in Africa. In the Western countries, they have done several studies on postdoctoral or postgraduate depression assessment, and very many people do get postgraduate studies depression in mainly. It's like I gave in so much, and maybe what I have just gotten in a day of high, the graduation, then afterwards I have the papers, and I go out to the job market, or I go back to my workplace, and especially here, here in Africa, you go back with your doctorate. Nobody even wants to know whether you made any difference in your own life, put a lot of money. Maybe where Colombia people are, maybe it's a bit different. Pauline may know this, but here, that if you don't know how to be resilient, I want to speak resilience in life. And I thank God today I was a very delicate child, but all those things coming up in the family, I chose to be resilient. And I have seen the beauty of being resilient, that I say these things have come to me. There is nothing I can do. Even as I am talking to you right now, Even if I'm the chair of a department where I sit at the university, that may not be correlate with the income that I should be having, the years of experience, the trainings I've had. I am globally trained. I have certificates one and another. I have affiliate associations, yeah, like in the US, in the UK, in Australia, and here in Kenya. But you may think that might come into a package. Nah. And that is why I want to appeal to you if you're watching me and listening to me. Forget about this noise, and I'm so sorry. Think about you. What do you like to do? That if today somebody tells you with your certificate there is no job, what can you do? And I'm in the business, even where I was today. I told parents, can you start nurturing your children's talents and their gifts? Because that might be the only thing that is gonna make them learn. Right now, I'm on 6 months without pay. What is making me survive? Because I have to put food on the table, I have to fuel my car. It's nothing else but the gift of speaking. What is it that you can do? Don't look at what even others can do. They may not recognize your achievements. And in my country, Kenya, if you're watching me from outside Kenya, we had one great woman, Wangari Maathai. That lady, even her hands, if you looked at her with all the manicure that was done, you could see her hands were really like shaped like the way you have, we call it the fork djembe here in Kenya, because she was always planting trees. But one day, the universe conspired. The universe conspired to see Wangari Maathai. And so after she died, the wealth she left, it can never be finished. It's like the way we hear of Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. I want to encourage you that you don't worry about how it's gonna be after you finish your master's, your doctorate. It might not be sweet as you may think, but what is it about you that you want to give to the world, that you want to sell to the world? And I want to assure you, it will pay you back more than you can ever imagine. And if the students can be meeting, the postgraduate students or graduates, you can meet and talk and share. I started such a platform because we realized majority of us, after fighting for so long in this country to get a PhD, you come out and you're like, this is even nothing. You don't even want to look at it because you almost died studying. So we share our experiences, support groups, yeah? We get webinars like these ones where people can share. And at the end of the day, we will not get to a level of clinical depression because some people have finished doctorates, they have finished masters, and they have become very sick. Some of them, you receive the paper 2 months after, 1 year after, even 5, you're dead. Why? So it's a high time we started talking. And if there is something Columbia family can do, especially to boost the way learners manage their lives and how lecturers interact with the students in Africa, I think we're gonna make a very big difference. And for me, it's only because you can never be held in your own native land. I think it's the high time in our universities, we stopped those theoretical, philosophical studies. We go to applied science. When I talk about applied science, ask me, Susan, in a school environment like this one, what are the mental health disorders among students? Ask me the next question. What can we do? I come down, I come to the same students, I stay with them for 6 months, the clinical trial movement, maybe I'm trying out a theory, and at the end of the day, I can say, this worked, this never worked. I want to tell you, I struggled if you access my work very much because people say counseling does not work. And I was telling myself, it is a social science. I can do a quasi-experimental study because in Africa, we don't have pure labs, psychology labs. So I can do a quasi-experimental study and then look at the effectiveness of one of the theories that I think can fit in Africa. That was hell for me, but I told you I'm resilient. I think I have overcome other things. And so this one I said, it has to pass. And one paper online from my PhD work before graduation won me a scholarship for that book. I haven't gotten enough money to publish it locally, but you can imagine it was published elsewhere because somebody saw this work is good. So I want to encourage you, don't sit there. The research methods and the skills you got, don't kill them. Join us, join Albert, join Pauline. Let's start doing something. You never know. You never know, but do you know your gifts? Do you know your interests? Do you know your abilities? Do you know your competencies? Who is in your hood? Who is in your inner circle? because that also matters a lot, because mentorship in Africa is dead, but there are few people that can hold your hand and take you somewhere. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. And if I may add into what Dr. is saying, away from identifying your skills and everything, you also must learn how to package yourself. You must brand yourself. You must brand yourself, and that would mean you need to consistently communicate what you're doing. Remember, it's not just enough to have a PhD. You need to showcase what you can do. And it also means that you also have to be proactive. Get yourself out there, okay? Utilize what the opportunity that you have with you. And for me, one of the biggest opportunities that we have is social media. What do you do with your social media page, for instance? Maybe you can utilize that space to just begin having conversations around what you're doing. In my part, for example, that's how I began. Just by going for my activities, showcasing what I'm doing. And over time, it has gained tractions, it's gained tractions. And now I'm at a point whereby I'm beginning to reap the benefits of that consistency. So there's need for branding, there's need for consistency, there's need for even being able to identify whatever it is that you really want to do. Remember, you don't compete with anyone. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and when you do that, you'll be on your way to thriving, and of course succeeding and being resilient. Okay, and also, if I may also add, learn also how to communicate. Be very clear. When you go to spaces, get into networking events, meaningful networking engagements, okay? Go out, like Dr. said, reach out to us. We are here. We've left our contact, our social media handles on the chat box. Kindly reach out and let's engage. Any other question or comment? Okay, if none, thank you very much. Over to you, Pauline.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gitau. I just have to mention, Sandra is closing for us, but we really, really appreciate you. And thank you for placing us, on top of your priority, that you come when we call. We really love and appreciate what you deposit on us. And our prayer is that God may, energize you and continue to pour more wisdom upon you so that you can, also help us along our journey. Thank you. Sandra?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pauline, for the beginning of the closing remarks. I apologize. I just realized my computer does not show my screen. So I'm very sorry about that. Dr. Gitau, I am very grateful. Justin Nairobi is very grateful for the time that you have taken today just to come and speak to us. And in fact, I am very appreciative of the motherliness and just the voice that you have just carried us through this session. It was like it's a lecture, but at the same time, it's an encouragement from a parent. So I really thank you. I thank you for the wisdom that you have shared with us today. It is not easy to come by just to somebody who can be able to mentor these days through such forums. And I hope that in some other setting, you will be able to come to teach us more and in a different way so that we may be able to gain more. Albert, I really appreciate the time that you have taken through your day to just even help us curate these sessions and ask the hard questions that need to be asked to be able to help our minds just begin thinking differently. So I really thank you for that. May God continue to expand your wings. I thank you to all our audience. Without you, this forum would not have been possible. We hope that you'll be able to join us next month for another session. And we continuously hope that you are being encouraged, your life and your views are continuing to change. We kindly ask that the survey that is going to pop up just after this webinar has ended, may you kindly fill it, because it will help us understand how we are faring on this series and how better we can be able to just make sure that we're giving you programs that you deserve. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan Gitau. You have reminded me something that my mom always says: delay your gratification and you will be happy in life. Thank you very much. May you all have a blessed evening, blessed morning. We hope to see you again. Bye.
And just before we end, I just like to say something to the viewers to encourage them. I was told this by one of my aunties, though now she's late. She'd always tell us, when people are sleeping, you should be standing. And when they are standing, you should be outstanding. And when they're outstanding, you should be the standard. Have a wonderful evening and take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.